Hello everybody, this is going to be a video about running a Bitcoin full node. Now you may think, what's this all about? It's a Python channel, why are you not doing Python videos? Well, I think this is actually part of the bigger picture really, and if you know anything about the current global financial crisis, you will know that money is becoming increasingly worthless. You go to work to earn money, so you exchange your time for money, which you can then spend on whatever you choose after the government has taken their cut of the tax. Now, if this share of your money keeps losing its purchasing power, ultimately you won't have very much purchasing power, which means that most of your money will be going in tax or on your mortgage or paying for your rent. What you need to do is preserve the purchasing power of your money. Numerous ways. You could buy gold. Traditionally, for 5,000 years, gold has been a good store of value, but to buy gold, you have to pay to store it, you have to pay to purchase it, lots of fees. Also, if you know about the word rehypothecation, you will know that even though allegedly the bank is storing your gold, they may have also sold that same piece of gold to somebody else. So ultimately, you could get what's called a run on the banks, even with gold. It's not one for one. So if you buy £1,000 of gold, they have not necessarily got £1,000 of gold in the bank vault. So this is where Bitcoin comes in. If you just think Bitcoin is funny internet money, then that's fine. But even if that is what you think, there is still stuff which you can learn about and find interesting, whether or not you actually want to put any of your personal wealth into Bitcoin. So what we're looking at here is, I think it's obviously JavaScript, but what it is a map of 6,881 reachable IPv4 and IPv6 nodes in the Bitcoin network as of Friday, November the 4th, 2022 GMT. Now, if you know anything about networking, you'll know that you've got IPv4 addresses, which are basically, or which are frequent. If you want a private address, what you need to use is NAT, and just bear with me. It's so cold here, and I don't want to put the heating on because it costs too much money. So I'm drinking hot coffee to keep myself warm. Yeah, IPv4. So you'll have like a 192.168.1.55 address or something like that. That will allow you to keep your network effectively private. So you've got a private, that's a private class C address. And then what you will do is you will use something called NAT, Network Address Translation, and then you can then connect to your internet service provider. But however, your ISP will allocate you a public address. That public address will be visible on the internet. Why is that important? Well, it does actually mean that you are kind of traceable, and because we can't trust you can't trust anybody, what you want to do is hide your public address. So in a minute, I'm going to get more into talking about Bitcoin Node, but if you know anything about Tor, the onion ring, now you may think, oh, that's for the dark web and that's really for criminals and everything like that. Well, that's fair enough, but also privacy. And in the UK yesterday, we heard that the Santander Bank is stopping people from buying more than £1,000 worth of Bitcoin already because they are worried. They're worried about the outflow of money to something which is scarce. Bitcoin, there will only ever be 21 million. So if you look up the inflation for Bitcoin, it technically at the moment it's 1.78%. The reason for that is because Bitcoin is still being mined, but the rate at which it is being mined is gradually going to go to zero. So ultimately, Bitcoin will have zero inflation. And to be honest, 1% inflation, compare that to what have we got now in the UK? They call it CPI, but really it's maybe 10% inflation. So if you left £1,000 in the bank for a year later, you could only really buy something that used to cost £900. So what I want to show you is Bitcoin Core running a Bitcoin. So if you come to bitcoin.org, and if you want to run a full node, I'll talk about what it is in a minute, but I just want to give you a tip. If you're in the UK, see, people think, oh, censorship only applies to, you know, Russia or Iran or somewhere. Already, the UK, this is kind of censorship, but this is bitcoin.org. If you go to bitcoincore.org, you can download it. But I did kind of worry when I first read this, and I thought, oh, that's... And I was going to then change my GeoIP to somewhere outside of the UK and download it, which you could do anyway. So yeah, Bitcoin Core, we'll get to this in a second. So if you want to do what, or see what I've done and follow along, and also set up your own core, set up your own full node using Bitcoin Core software. So it's not, Bitcoin Core software is not the only way you can run a full node, but it's pretty much the recommended way, and this is what the developers, the core developers, produce. So yeah, why choose anything else? So Bitcoin is decentralized, so it uses all of these nodes all around the world to verify each block. Now, what is a block? A block is a block on the blockchain. What is a blockchain? Blockchain is basically it's a series or a sequence of blocks confirmed every 10 minutes and hashed, and then the miners, you've got the miners, and then you've got the full nodes. The miners are actually the ones with the ASICs and the noisy machines, which solve the complex mathematical problem. The first one to solve the problem gets the opportunity to confirm the block, and then they get what's called the block fee. All of the independent nodes keep a copy of that ledger, and then they can verify it. So if I show you what I've actually got on here, let me see. Okay, we got this, run this earlier. So if I just run this and update it, hopefully it's a font. I'll just make the font bigger because nobody wants to watch a video with really small font. That's one of my pet annoyances. So I'm running Bitcoin, the Bitcoin daemon. So PSAX, sorry, PSAX grep Bitcoin D. So Bitcoin daemon, and there it is, it's running in the background. And because that's running in the background, I can then run Bitcoin CLI commands. So it really is that simple once you've got it all set up and installed. You've got a daemon running in the background. So if you're familiar with Linux, if you're on Windows, then it would be, well, a process. Linux is a daemon. It's running in the background, and it's doing mine is talking to the onion ring, but it doesn't have to. You could just expose your public IP, but as you saw just now, it is then viewable in a list. So the list being, this list is available via bitnodes.io, but obviously anybody in the world can find this list. So lots of people use, about 55% use the onion ring. It gives you some kind of privacy, and what we're worried about here is not crime. We're worried about privacy with respect to ultimately censorship. You know, if your government in your country decides that anybody running Bitcoin is a bad person, then potentially they would go and tell your internet service. They would actually come on here and they could find your internet service provider. For instance, there's somebody, let me just find a really obvious one. Just bear with me. No, I think Hetzen is a big one. I think that's Germany. So Frankfurt. So quite often DigitalOcean, Google Cloud Platform. Yeah, that's the other thing. Some people seem to be running the full nodes on Google Cloud and on Amazon. Amazon's actually got quite a few. Yeah, so your service provider potentially is being advertised via Bitcoin Core. So best thing is use Core. Use Tor. 6881 reachable nodes. So Tor support in Bitcoin. If you go to GitHub, instructions here. So under the Bitcoin, just go to Bitcoin, search for Bitcoin on GitHub. Bitcoin Core integration staging tree. You can see C, C++. But there's plenty of ways you can do stuff with this using Python. You can make your own client. You can query. You could actually pass the response data from. Bring that back up. So obviously that's JSON dictionary. You could pass this with Python, and let me just update that. So you can see that here. I'll go through these in a second. So get blockchain info. So this info is key values, so it's JSON, or you could convert that into a Python dictionary. If you've not seen the block clock, it's basically a clock which increments as the block number on the Bitcoin blockchain increases. So approximately every 10 minutes, the number of blocks increases by 1. And all the miners are basically competing to secure the right to confirm that block and then add it to the blockchain. So 761690. Each block is approximately 1 megabyte in size. There was something in 2017 called the Block Wars, which is where there was a rival group of developers, I'm not sure, but there was a group of people who wanted to increase the block size. Point of keeping it to 1 megabyte means that if we just do df minus h, I can show you here. You can see on dev/SDA1, I've got, technically it's a terabyte drive, it's a terabyte SSD, and it's 53% full at the moment. So because each block only increases the size of the blockchain by 1 megabyte, we've got quite a bit of future proof left here. And ultimately, you could also do something called prune. I don't know enough about that. Here you can see pruned equals false. I know you could do that if you were running short on disk space. So blocks 761s. If I talk long enough, that will go up by 1. Approximately every 10 minutes it increments. So back to, I can close that. So Bitcoin network, Bitcoin nodes, 6,000 in the world. That's actually live. So if we go here, we can see uptime less than 24 hours. We've got syncing nodes. So those are all probably new nodes or nodes that have been switched off and turned back on again. Nodes with the same IP as adjacent. I don't know. Perhaps they are. Let's have a look at those. Yeah, so they're all ones in data centers. So not very many, to be honest. Yeah, so download Bitcoin Core. Software which you can run on Linux, Mac, Windows. You can use a Linux snap as well if that's easier to work with. The instructions are all here. The really important thing is you need to, if you're going to connect what's called your wallet to your full node, you do really need to make sure you verify the signatures, because if the software was, that's not good. If the software was changed in transit, oh right, so that's why you need to go to Core. Because I'm in the UK, these are all blocks, look. Yeah, so go to bitcoincore.org, download, and you can get them from here. So yeah, all your different distros. So the first thing you do, check your bandwidth and space. So that's where you need to basically have a 1 terabyte hard drive. If you've got anything less, then you're going to be, going around in ever decreasing circles. Verify your download. So there's different instructions for each OS here, but you basically need to download the list of checksums, and further on you can use GPG, key server, HTTPS key. So what you're doing is you're basically verifying the integrity of the file that you've downloaded that you're going to be running. So I'm not going to go into, some of it's above my pay grade, but Bitcoin 23 is the current version. So you're basically checking the checksum of your file against the checksum of the file that has been published by the developers, and it should be the same. So yeah, check you've got a hard drive big enough, verify your download. So you can run this on Windows, Mac, Linux. If you've got a Raspberry Pi, then that's ideal. One thing I did read was something about the Raspberry Pi software not being 100% open source for some of the hardware. I don't know to comment on that, but if you really security conscious, then maybe check that out. I think it was on YouTube on the Amsterdam Bitcoin conference. There was a company there, and they were basically saying the Raspberry Pi has got some proprietary code on it. So yeah, this is all about using as much open source, peer-reviewed, trusted software as possible, really. You don't want software which somebody else has got the ability to alter when they have got their own commercial interests, shall we say. Bitcoin is basically open source, it's free. Well, Bitcoin's not free, I'd defeat the object, but you can see the code is free. Bitcoin Core is an open source project which maintains and releases Bitcoin client software called Bitcoin Core. It's a direct descendant of the original Bitcoin software client released by Satoshi Nakamoto after he published the famous Bitcoin white paper. Bitcoin Core consists of both full node software, which is what I've installed, which I'm just showing here, for fully validating the blockchain, as well as a Bitcoin wallet. The project also currently maintains related software such as cryptography library, libsec, P256K1, and others located at GitHub. Anyone can contribute to Bitcoin Core. You can contribute, but it doesn't mean your code's going to get included. The Bitcoin Core project is a large open source developer community with many casual contributors to the code base. There are many more who contribute research, peer review, testing, documentation, and translation. Project maintainers have commit access and are responsible for merging patches from contributors. They perform a janitorial role, merging patches that the team agrees should be merged. They also act as a final check to ensure the patches are safe and in line with the project goals. The maintainer's role is by agreement of project contributors. Everyone is free to propose code changes and test, review, and comment on open pull requests. Yeah, so it's all here. You can read it all. But the challenges, let me just talk about the difficulties, or the difficulties I had in setting this up. So yeah, verifying the download actually probably was the most difficult part. The other difficult part was I had to make sure you use etc. FSTab. You make sure that I'm going to CD, is it etc. FS. No. You need to, where is it? FSTab, yes, CD, FSTab. You need to, oh, it's not a directory, is it? Vim, FS. You do need to make sure that your hard drive mounts, or it gets mounted when you reboot your machine, otherwise you'd have to do it manually. So this is kind of obviously, you would also need to make auto login as well, because otherwise if you get a power cut, but if we ignore power cuts, to be honest, depending on where you live, that may or may not be a factor, but yeah, if you edit etc. FSTab, you just need to add in something like this. So depending on what, do LSBLK to find out the name of your hard drive, your SSD. I formatted mine as ext4 because I'm using Linux. All this information you can find online, so I'm not going to go massively in depth into it. But yeah, just say that was one of the challenges, was making sure the disk gets mounted each time. Sorry. Yeah, so mounting the drive. Also, you do need to set up a file called Bitcoin conf, which if we go to mnt/Bitcoin ls. So you will, when you set up, you can, by default, the installation thinks that you'll be writing to your local hard drive, and it will try and set up a bitcoin.conf file on the hard drive of your computer. I've actually created the bitcoin.conf file on my storage drive. My thinking behind that was, if I choose to move it to a different machine, then I won't have to recreate it.